All right, we are live. So, welcome everyone to the 31 Days of Culture, the crazy idea that I came up with in the middle of the night that, hey, why not go live every day in October? That seems like a great idea, but I'm doing it and I'm having a lot of fun. And I'm on day 5. We've had some amazing people so far, and today is no different. We have my friend Hortense here, and she just launched a book. I'm launching a book at the end of the month. So please forgive us if we say the word book a few times. It's probably going to come up, but I'm super, super excited to talk about culture today. And hey, welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Chris, and congratulations on your book. This is wonderful.
Thank you so much. So give everyone just a quick little, who are you? Obviously you're in New York, but that's not a New York accent. So maybe give us a little rundown of who you are and all the cool stuff you're doing.
Yeah, how did you get that? So yes, I was born and raised in France, in Paris, and my career has taken me from competitive equestrian show jumping to advertising to entrepreneur, which led me to find my calling as an executive leadership coach. And this is what I do today. And today I help leaders to unlock their potential and find humanity and empathy in their worlds. And I'm living now in New York. This is true.
Well, that's awesome stuff. And you have this new book, The Unlocked Leader. What's that all about?
The Unlocked Leader is a guide who talk about and give you a process to guide you on how to unlock, how to free yourself from your mind traps that hold you back. A lot of mind traps that hold you back, for example, for being the human leader that people need today. And it's all about, so it's a process. So already I gave, the process from my experience as a coach and from, and my personal also experience. And I'm talking about that. And the mind trap is this feeling when you feel like unhappy and unsatisfied or guilt or shame, or you feel like you are not whole. You would love to be, another person, but you are afraid to be this person. And you feel locked at one point. You feel locked like I cannot move forward. So the book gives this process to free yourself.
And would you call the sort of mind traps, would you categorize those as cognitive biases? Is that kind of the same thing? Are these, is it those types of things, or is it something different?
It's a bit different. So a mind trap is what is, so again, this feeling that we all have at one point. We said, I don't know where to go. So I'm going to share an example. It happened to everyone. It happened to me also. So it was years ago. And at one point in my life, I felt like I was not at the right place, personally and professionally. And I felt unhappy. I felt not whole as a person. And what happened is everything went south. I got, stuck in bed for years, not years, but for months. And I was completely stuck. And why? It's because I will learn later that it's because I didn't listen to my own voice. I listened to outside voices who told me you cannot be an entrepreneur at the age of 40 or things like that. So, and this is what I call a mind trap. It's something that helps you until now, and at one point when you want to evolve, it doesn't work anymore. It's when you listen to other voices, and so this is what I talk about. And also it's and the problem is, if you are locked somewhere, maybe you don't know, you're not aware of it, by the way, but if you're locked somewhere, the problem is it affects the way you look at yourself, you connect with yourself, and the way you connect with others, because you cannot be authentic. You cannot be the person you should be or the leader you should be.
Yeah. And, this kind of reminds me a little bit of one of the pillars in my book for what makes a great culture is transparency. Mm-hmm. And what I noticed was people in life, but especially at work, there's like this story we're telling ourselves. We think that somebody comes in the door, they don't smile at us or don't say hi, they're mad at us, they don't like us, they're mean to us. Maybe they're just having a hard time at home, or maybe they don't like their job, or maybe there's something else going on with them, and nothing to do with me, but there's a story there, right? That you begin to tell yourself. And that's, I guess, almost like a mind trap, right? Where you think, well, somebody is acting one way to me, or they favor somebody else. And I find that when we really institute this sort of radical transparency, where we're sharing goals, we're sharing information, we're sharing about how we're doing, right? And we're willing to be open and honest about things with our boss, with our team, that we sort of find that a lot of that stuff kind of goes away. Right? We realize there was more to the story. There was more to what was going on. And we can have a better work experience. Do you think that kind of helps people break free of these mind traps by having more information and having more transparency?
Exactly. And I completely agree with what you said. A mind trap, it's a mental obstacles, like you said. And the problem is you don't write your own story. And as you said, in fact, it's all about stories. They are the stories that our brain is making. This is our own story. The good news is we can change, because it's only stories. So because they are only stories, we can change the stories, and we can rewrite the story, and rewrite the story to be authentic, as you said. And if you begin to be authentic, you will be more vulnerable. You will be able to be human leader, and you'll be able to connect with your team and with others. So really, the first step is those mind traps, be aware of them. Where are they coming from? So I can talk about that also if you want. But where are they coming from? And after, you go to the mind shifts, what I call the mind shifts. So how you do this transformation, how you rewrite this story to be authentic and to create a real, authentic culture.
Yeah, I mean, and creating that authentic culture is not easy. I think often it really relies on us having positive leadership, right? And showing up, trying to be your best self. Otherwise, the culture can very quickly turn into something very negative, right? It can turn into something very toxic, cutthroat. And I think it's okay for some cultures, it works for some companies to be fast-paced and intense, and and that's fine. It doesn't mean we all have to be standing around the fire singing Kumbaya, like, in order for it to be a good culture. But it does need to be authentic, right? Like, we know who we are, and we show up and do great work, right? And we have to kind of have that mind shift about who we are, I think, and is this a positive thing? Is this a positive version? Do you agree?
Yes, I agree, but I would say also, I will add to that okay, when a culture, what is a culture to me, and a leader? As a leader, you are a role model, right? So, as you said, it's very important to begin at the beginning and take the time to think about what is important for you as a leader. How do you want to show up as a leader? And what is your purpose? What is your why? How you want to show up? So this is very important, because everything begin with you and your inner connection. It's empathy. It's about empathy, but empathy begins with you. So, as a leader, take the time to reflect and think about that. I give, very often, I give to my clients an exercise to write a eulogy. Write your eulogy. And why? Because if you do this exercise, you will understand very fast what is important for you. Because it's a hard exercise to do, but this is very helpful, just, to be sure. And we have a lot of noise, around us. A lot of voices are talking. So more than ever, we need, as a leader and as a person, we need to take time for us and to think about what kind of leader, how you want to be remembered, because you are your role model. People are going to look at you, and it's less about what you're going to say, but more about what you're going to do. So the first step for me is that. And the second step is to, or maybe the first step is, to free yourself from your mind trap. So to go to this transformation and to listen to the voices we are talking about just before. So those voices, are they helpful today? So I'm going to give you an example. So I had, years ago, they were a leader. And this leader was confirmed to be, if it was confirmed, was considered to be the next CEO of the company. So in order to do that, he has to talk in front of a bunch and a panel of leaders. He had 2 interviews, and those leaders were responsible of the process. And out of the blue, completely out of the blue, his behavior changed. He became very talkative. He became, he didn't listen. He was not the same person. So of course, he lost it. He didn't get a job. And we had this conversation, and he told me, I don't know where it's coming from. Revisiting his life, he remembered that 30 years before that event, he had also to take an oral exam and to be in front of a panel of interviewers and teacher. One of the teacher didn't let him talk. So he was shocked. He was, he lost his cool, and he didn't understand. And this teacher told him, young guy, I can promise you one thing. You will never be a CEO because you cannot handle your emotions. So it was 30 years before. Can you imagine that? 30 years before. But it was a trauma. So mind traps can come from trauma. And in that case, it was trauma and voices. So if you're here and you are a leader, how can you be yourself if you still have that, in your mind somewhere? So he was not aware of it, but now he was aware. So I went, to the mind shift and to the transformation process, and I asked him, is it true that you cannot be a CEO? Is it relevant? And is it helpful today? Because you have to challenge your voices. And of course, he told me, no, and no. So we worked on how to let go. So this is how you shift, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I love this concept of, you listen to those voices, and so often our behaviors are driven by this trauma. And if we look at an individual, that's the story. If we look at a company, sometimes the culture has been created by trauma, right? We went through a pandemic, we went through a recession, we went through a lawsuit, we went through whatever difficult thing, and suddenly that's what shaped the culture moving forward. And that isn't always a good thing, right? In a person, we understand that letting trauma reshape our behavior is not a good thing. And yet I just thought of this, that I don't think companies ever view it that way, right? They don't think we went through this really tough thing and now we should be better for it. It's almost like they might have gotten worse for it, right? If we're not going to talk about, what it did to us and how it changed maybe the employees we have, or the services we offer, the products we offer, to kind of go back and have to deal with some of that as well. So I love this sort of concept that you're bringing up here today.
Yeah, and Chris, you just said the world had changed. So the expectation of your teams and your employees, customer has changed. So as a leader, I think it's very important to challenge, your culture, your even if it's here for years. This is not a reason. Just like we said, you have to adapt yourself. And again, people want, I think people, what I see is people want and need to connect with you as a leader. They don't need another hero, like Tina Turner said. They want a human leader. They want somebody with who they can relate. And if your culture is based on trauma, it's complicated, because how can they thrive? How can they evolve in that culture? And again, so maybe if you are a new in the leader position, I will recommend the first things to do is to think about it, because again, you are the role model. So they are going to look at you again, like we said before.
Yeah. They're always going to look to us, right, as leaders, and that's why culture ultimately it's created by the leaders and it is driven by the leaders. Our people will take it and run with it in whatever direction, good, bad, or otherwise, that we allow that culture to kind of exist, right? If we create a bad culture, then we can expect bad behavior, and if we expect to create a good culture, we should have great behavior and great outcomes.
Yes.
For our people. But
yes.
In rare cases do the average employees create the culture, and that's a pretty scary environment, right? Where that means there's no leadership, or it's void of leadership. And leadership is hard. I've said many times, it often sucks sometimes, right? It's not an easy thing to do. I think some of us probably have a moment in our leadership career where we go, why did I sign up to be a leader again? Like, why did I think this was a good idea? But it is something that's important, and that culture component is there. I wanted to ask, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I just wanted to jump on what you said. It is so important, because as a leader, yes, it's a lot. You have to face a lot of things today, especially today, right? And so how important it is to go back to yourself, to your values, to your why, to why you're here, by the way. What difference you want to make in the world or for your team. And this is how you're going to stay on track. In fact, as a leader, if you remember that, oh, by the way, yes, I'm here because I want whatever it is, or because I believe whatever it is. And how it's so important, because if you know that, and if every day you think about it, every day you do your daily meeting, when I say with yourself, just thinking about that, if you are clear with that, I think it's very helpful for you. It's very helpful for you, and it's very helpful for your culture and for your team.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think one of the most important things that leaders really had to get good at during the pandemic, and I think is really coming out of this time where we feel we're back to normal, we feel like it's business as usual, but really being a great listener. It's so important. It's one of the things, one of the pillars of a great culture. But we saw that leaders really had to slow down and be good listeners. They fortunately or unfortunately had a little extra time to actually do some of that work, and to really, there wasn't as much to do, and we were all a little bit scared. And so I noticed that leaders did slow down and listen a bit more to their people. How do you think the concept of being a good listener, does that connect to your mind build, technique, what you talk about in your book, to really help cultivate that culture where people can feel truly heard?
Yes, it's here. It's all about empathy. So as a leader, you need to feel empathy, and to work on your empathy. And how you do that? So as we said before, you begin with yourself, to understand yourself, and to take the moment to reflect. The second thing is you have to understand, we have to remember that how the brain is working and also how we are all connected. So we are absolutely all connected. It's like the trees in the forest, the same. So my brain is talking to your brain. This is what we talk, the mirror neurons, or Gandhi neurons, as Ramachandra, the very famous neuroscientist, name them. And what are they? They are here to do two things: to imitate. So they're going to imitate you. So for example, if I take a glass of water, you're going also to do the same. Your brain is going to do the same at the same time. So this is what we're talking about. And the second thing is, it allows you to put yourself in other shoes. So this is what empathy is about. And as a leader, it's very important to understand that. And we come back to the fact that you are a role model and people are looking at you. So it's less about what you say and more about what you do. So it's empathy. And this empathy, we all feel that, but you have to work on it. And how to work on it is by listening more. Practice to listen more, but really listen, not just, being here and in fact you think about something else. Deeply listen. So talk less as a leader. And also you also practice, for example, meditation. So, research shows that meditation help you, to feel others. And why it is important? Because if you don't practice empathy, you will never understand or give, this space to your employees, to your teams to express themselves. You will not understand. I think you begin with that, our conversation, telling that if you feel like somebody didn't talk to you today, and maybe you say, oh, what did I do? And you think that it's your fault. And in fact, something happened to this person, not to you. So how important is it as a leader to understand that? Because if not, you are not going to understand and interpret correctly the signals. So that would be wrong. And also, this is so important for you to understand what they don't say, to help them or to give them, the space to evolve, to talk, to express themselves. Your team and your customer, same. If you are not able to listen to your customer, but really listen, or to practice empathy, means to try to guess what even your customer didn't think yet about. How are you going to create the next product? How are you going to innovate? So practice to listen more, meditate, or do a role play. This is what I did during COVID, for example. If I remember, go back to the story I shared concerning, the leader who was considered to be a CEO. When he understood at that moment, that in fact, what happened during the interview was he was surreacted, because in fact his trauma was still there, and he was surreacted, to be sure that nobody's going to cut him off. And he understood that, and when he let go and said, okay, this is not my voice, doesn't belong to me. I can go back to trauma if you want after to explain you exactly what is a trauma. But he was able to be himself completely. Mm-hmm. And in fact, he was able to increase his empathy, and he was a very human leader. So in fact, it was exactly at that moment that he began his journey to become a human leader. And it was just before COVID. Wow. So when COVID arrived, we practiced, and so he had all this team every day on Zoom. And it was scary at the beginning, because I say, what I'm going to say, and talking about emotions, and if people say that they lost someone, how can I react? So we practice together. So it's helped you to feel more empathy with others, and just to think about your fears also, and to practice that. And this is what he did. So every day he gave the space and the stage to his team, and he was listening. And of course, because you are the role model, he began, in fact, all meeting with himself, and what happened, during the day before, whatever, where they were. And so, my God, it was so helpful. He completely changed, because he could be completely himself. And now we had an amazing new position as a CEO. But this is how it happens. And this is why it is so important to free yourself. And this is why it is so important to be yourself.
Well, I love these stories, because it's often the stories that get us to change, that get us to move, that inspire us, right? We can read an academic paper that would tell us the same thing, but it doesn't quite have the same impact, right? Mm-hmm. And so the story really matters. And I hope that people will check out your book, The Unlocked Leader. I'm sure there's even more stories in there. I'm excited because my book comes out at the end of the month. There's a link in wherever you're watching this live. There's a link there. And there are stories from Gary Vaynerchuk's company, from NASA, from Neiman Marcus, and so many others that we added and expanded. The book's double the size, I think, from the first edition. So I'm super happy. And if you liked stories that you heard today, I think you're going to love her book. Hopefully you'll pick up my book and you'll love it too. And a reminder that I will be on just about, so every day, every weekday, I have an interview with somebody. And I think the weekends are mostly me. There's a few people in there, but I'll be live every day talking about culture. Certainly, if you have questions, if there's something you want to cover out there, please let me know. Send me a DM or put it in the comments. But thank you so much for being here today. I always love listening to you and learning from you. And I'm sure your clients and everyone who picks up your book thinks the same.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me. Thank you for writing this amazing book. I was very pleased to read it before everyone. Sorry, but and good luck, and everyone, buy Chris' book.
All right, thank you, and we'll see everyone tomorrow. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.